Commander's morning, Nhlanhla. This message I'm about to deliver is a timeless message. It's not a message for sissies. It's a message for people who understand that this country needs to be freed from political capture. Not from some political parties, from political capture. We need to rise as the people, as communities, and reclaim the glory and the victory of this country. We need to make sure that we reclaim the power from politicians back into the ordinary people's hands, back into our communities, so that we as a continent, as a country, as communities, as families can move forward. So if you are stuck up in the thinking that, hey, you are from this political party, that political party, you are colored, you are black, you are Indian, you are white, this message is not for you if you're still thinking in your own small bubble. This message is for South Africans that want to move South Africa forward. So the IEC petition that has been circulating around Soweto is collecting 1,000 signatures. 1,000 signatures that we need to hand back to the IEC, and these 1,000 signatures are from the people in Soweto that are saying that they support the idea of Soweto to be an independent community in the upcoming 2024 elections, because we are tired of being represented by politicians, regardless of which political party it is. It's time that the people of Soweto, the community of Soweto, represents itself in the elections so that we can have the opportunity to represent ourselves in the national parliament, in the National Assembly, where all issues and matters of Soweto will be articulated in that parliament, and therefore all problems and solutions that come from parliament can come directly into our community without being represented by politics or politicians. So it's important for us to register in the national elections, and by the way, we are also going to be participating in the local elections. But the national elections are important because it means that Soweto will have a direct representative in Parliament that is there to take care of all the problems and issues that Soweto as a community faces. Because we're tired of what has been normalized, where politicians in Parliament are literally there to take care of their political party interests, not community interests. So for the first time in the history of our country, we are going to have, as Soweto, we are going to pioneer the idea where communities stand and communities represent themselves in Parliament. That question has come up so many times. Can some communities or other communities register themselves with the IEC just like we are doing in Soweto? The answer is yes. It's important that every community stands up for itself. It's the only way this country can move forward. There is no way that one community can make a difference in the entire country. Our efforts will make a difference in our own community, but we can't do much for other communities. And one thing that Soweto can't do, we can't impose ourselves or impose our leadership or impose our strategies on the rest of South Africa. So people have to also stand up, and we come together and we make sure that this country becomes the country that we need. And communities is where the change starts, because you can't expect change in the country if you are failing to implement that change in your own community. So we need to all stand, and we need to all make sure that we register with the IEC. White communities, Indian communities, black communities, colored communities, Asian communities, we all stand and we make sure that we vote for ourselves, so that the people that you know, that you can hold accountable, represent you in the national parliament. And if there's a problem, the communities can recall some of these people to say that you are not representing the needs of our people. You are there flapping around talking about nonsense that has absolutely nothing to do with our community. So it's a big yes. Communities must stand, and they must follow suit, and they must continue in the direction that we are taking, and register with the IEC, get the 1,000 signatures, get the businesses in the community, the local businesses, to pay whatever fee that the IEC requests for the registration. And we all register as communities, we vote for ourselves, and we all meet in Parliament. The time for politics is done. I think that's an important question. How will this all be structured in our communities? It's important because other communities need to learn and know how to do it so that they can actually do it. The first step is to have a community structure, executive structure. This executive structure is that normal structure with the chairman or chairperson, deputy chairperson, secretary, and so forth, and additional members. 10 people need to make up the structure. This structure would speak to the IEC. This structure would also in future speak to your community members of parliament that are in parliament. They communicate with the structure and therefore the community. So the first step is to make sure that you elect And if you don't have the time because 2024 is around the corner, you appoint a structure, and then this structure will then oversee the processes of putting together a community members of parliament proposed list. And the criteria is simple. It's young people. We focus on gender. We focus on disabled community. So we make sure that you start with having a woman candidate, a female candidate, followed by a male candidate, followed by one of our members from the disabled community within our own community. And then it just continues in the same order. And once you have the members of parliament list and you've got that structure and you've submitted to the IEC, you are ready to now start to campaign and make sure that the education that is necessary for your community is there and people understand that we are all voting for our communities instead of politics. So what if some communities don't have the numbers to stand alone? We actually have that reality right now that we are faced with. Community of Alexandra is a big community in stature, but a very small communities in terms of numbers. So we as Soweto, because we've got millions of people when it comes to our population, we've decided that we need to play the big brother role that we've always played in history, and we make sure that communities such as Alexandra can piggyback on our numbers, okay? So they're going to be participating in this voting, in the 2024 voting season with us. They're going to be voting for us. Why? Because we are going to give them a seat. We are going to guarantee them a seat. Because if they do it alone, they'll never meet the threshold. They'll never have a seat in parliament. So they'll therefore depend on politics to represent them in parliament. So Soweto is going to play the liberator that it's always been in history, and we're going to continue the spirit of liberating other communities and the country in general. So Alexandra, we have a written agreement with it to say that one of the seats that come out of Soweto will be given to Alexandra as a community, so that we all meet in parliament, so that Alexandra has someone in that National Assembly, in parliament, that is there to take care of the interests, the needs of the people of Alexandra and the community of Alexandra. So the first things we are going to prioritize as a community when we win, right? When we meet victory in 2024. And I must also give you background. Generally, politicians would come and promise us things in the old system, in the old ways of doing things. But in the new way that we are proposing right now, that we are doing it for ourselves. So what are we then promising ourselves? We as a community know our problems more than absolutely anybody that can walk in our communities. And the top 10 things that we are going to prioritize and make sure that we don't only talk about, but we put action behind. One of them starts with electricity. We need to have a short-term and a long-term plan for electricity. The short-term plan is that we're going to use the power we have in Parliament to make sure we pass a flat rate so that every household in Soweto can start paying. Don't forget that the culture of not paying for anything, electricity being a priority, comes from politics, the politicians. They campaigned with it in 1994, promised people free electricity, and that did not materialize. And that culture, we then felt entitled as the people of Soweto, and it unfortunately brought us to the point where we are now. So with the new leadership and the new way of thinking, we're saying that people must take responsibility of the services they use for this country to go forward. So the first short-term solution for electricity we're going to try put in place, and actually going to put in place, is that we are going to have that 200 rands flat rate proposed in Parliament, so that the people of Soweto and many other communities can start paying for the electricity we consume, to avoid all the load shedding and the disasters that we have faced when it comes to electricity. The long-term plan is that we are going to make sure that we have our own independent power plant in Soweto. If the Afrikaans government could do it for our people, why can't we do it for ourselves? Right now we are bungee jumping. We are bungee jumping and taking selfies on what's supposed to be a power plant. So we are not going to fall for the social ills and the social traps of saying, no, you people deserve a good time and nice time, and not serious things in your communities. A power plant is a serious asset of the community. So we are going to bring back those type of assets and make sure that we work with those who want to work with us to make sure that we've got our own independent electricity. And if South Africa as a larger community, as a country, needs power, we as Soweto can sell back or even give back some power to assist in alleviating the national disaster of our national grid, electricity. And number two, another issue that is a burning issue that can never ever be even discussed in Parliament without the people representing themselves is the issue of family houses. We've got people who have died because of family houses. Siblings have killed each other in townships because of family houses. As soon as Gogo dies, the owner of the family house, we all kill each other for the family house. This one wants to open a spaza. This one opens a successful business. Out of jealousy, you want to say, yeah, this is my master ace. And then we start politicking around the family house. So, and women will go out and get married. Generally, if you look at it, that's the norm. I'm telling you stats here, not my opinion. Some siblings will go out and get married. And the stats in South Africa tells you that majority of marriages do not last. So that person must come back home at some point. You must leave room for that person to come. And then Lux is the only one that's left because his brother's in prison, his sister's married, and now he's the one living in the family house. He wants to sell it. So what we are going to do as a solution for the family house problem, we are going to make sure that all the banks understand that the community is going to be part of the process of selling any family house, because the community knows better than any institution in South Africa. You can't tell me the city of Johannesburg has more information on any property more than the community. The community knows that where Gogo's grave is. City of Johannesburg doesn't even know where the original owner is laying, which grave site, go Avalon, whichever other grave site. So we are going to make sure that there must be a document signed by the community. If Lux is selling the house, he must go through the community and say that community, I'm the seller as you know me, and this guy, Party B, is the buyer. So if you allow me to sell to the buyer with no contest, this process is going to the bank. So the banks will now know that through the leadership on the ground, they must have the signatures from the community, because the community can say, yeah, Lux, we understand you're selling the house. What happens when your brother comes back in 7 years from prison? The banks did not know that my brother's in prison. Then the brother comes back and he wants to now kill people because there's new faces who are now living in his mother or in his grandmother's house without anyone, without him consenting to that process. So for me, that is a burning issue that we are going to have to solve, and that's the most underrated issue. That is a big problem in our communities in South Africa's townships in particular. The third point boiling issue in Soweto that we're going to prioritize when we get into Parliament, simple, is all the hijacked properties in our communities. We've got many hijacked properties. Public facilities are hijacked. Schools are hijacked. You go to Deep Kloof, there's a school. People are living in classrooms, but we've got shortage of schools in Soweto. Our population is increasing, but our facilities are dilapidating without any rescue. So we are going to make sure that we rescue all the hijacked facilities. And by the way, hijacked facilities include even the RDPs. The RDP houses, our aunts, our uncles, they are sitting with forms called C forms. The C form, for those who don't know, is a form you get from Department of Housing to say that your house is on the way. Some of our people have been sitting with C forms for more than 20 years. And you've got people that you don't even know occupying RDPs without paperwork. Those with paperwork don't have RDPs. So we are going to be very radical in reclaiming some of the RDPs that were hijacked by the system through corruption, and people don't know have taken over those RDPs. So that's one of the biggest things we are going to do unapologetically, because we can't allow corruption to capture the future of this community called Soweto. The fourth point, and it's probably the most sensitive point that's been discussed globally, it affects us in our communities, undocumented people. Listen, I'm not saying undocumented foreigners, I'm saying people, even South Africans that are not documented are going to be held accountable. Everyone in our communities must be documented so that we can hold people accountable for all their movements. And this also includes the back room, meaning the leasing, meaning the rentals. Baba Rentan, those who are renting our back rooms have to be audited. We have to start making sure that the process of you renting your back room to someone must include the police station. We want a background check on everyone in our communities, because we are responsible for housing the people that rape our neighbors. We are responsible for housing the people that bomb our ATMs and commit the most horrific crimes in our communities. And we say, ooh, the government is not working. Ooh, the country is in a bad state. It's because we are housing the people that are literally collapsing our own country. So if we want the country to change, we must start the change in our communities, and we are going to make sure as Soweto we set a good example when it comes to that. So 6 and 7, they're actually related: drugs and gangsterism in our communities, in our schools. So we are going to make sure that we're not going to tiptoe around the drug issue. You've never heard any politicians speaking about drug dealers. They always speak about the end user, the drug user, who we are going to open rehabs. And I'm not taking a shot at anyone, I'm speaking reality. So we cannot always treat the symptom. Let's treat the cause. Let's go to war if we have to go to war. If it means that we must go to a full-out war to save the future of this community called Soweto and the country called South Africa, let's go to war. That's what it means. People are at war, killing our kids with drugs, enriching themselves so that their kids can go to private schools at the expense of our kids here in the township. Can never be. So that's one of the things we are going to confront head on. We are going to grab the bull by its horns and make sure that there is no room for drug dealing in our communities. There's no room for gangsterism in our schools and in our communities. So probably the 8th and 9th thing that we are going to do and prioritize is to bring back sports and arts and culture in both our schools and communities. Why is that important? When we fight drugs, we need to give our young people an alternative. If you remember, not so long ago when I was growing up, and this is not many decades ago, we used to have sports all over Soweto. Wednesday, school sports. Saturday, this primary school has cricket nets. You can go bowl. You can go explore many talents. So we need to make sure that drug dealers and drug users and every other social ill does not find a market. Because idling young people are a market to social ills. So we need to destroy the market and give young people alternative programs so that they can always remain busy in our communities. And because when they are busy, they are occupied. They don't have time for the nonsense. Even teenage pregnancy are things that will go down and drop in stats because the young people, male and female, are very busy in our communities. And this also speaks to the uniform. The uniform issue. It's a big issue. We can't have uniform being fashion in our schools because at the end of the day, the environment you create will at some point capture your mindset. You know the saying goes, the mindset is the environment is the master of any mind. So you will, if you want to be the best soccer player, you best chill with soccer players. If you start chilling with people that fly planes, you will not know how to kick a soccer ball, take a free kick or take a penalty kick. You must make sure that your environment is conducive for the success you want in terms of your mindset. So when you start making these kids, making our students, allowing them to make school uniform fashionable and biteable scooter. For those who don't know, scooter is when the dresses show you the bum cheeks, and we think that is normal. We are sexualizing being a student. We're going to go back to our roots where where students can be respected in our communities, and we're going to go back to that spirit of Ubuntu where every elderly person is your parent. We are not going to tolerate this nonsense of saying that kids are independent. Independent in communities? We are all, there's law of relativity in the black society in our history. We are all related at some point, and I must be able as an elderly to call your child to order. We are bringing back that type of spirit so that we can have harmony in our communities and our communities can go forward. So last but not least, one of the most exciting things for me that we are going to focus on is the township economy. The township economy belongs to the people of the township. We can't tiptoe and we can't pretend like we speak about it conveniently when it suits some people or politicians or this or that. Now that the community is taking power and taking charge and saying that it's got the power of parliament and represent itself, how we are going to move when it comes to township economy? We are saying that all the jobs in our township economy, from the malls to as far as events that are held in the township, all the jobs are going to be prioritized for the people of Soweto. There is no discussion about that. All the business opportunities are going to be reserved and are going to be left for priority. Yeah, the business people in Soweto. We are tired of seeing mega construction happening and you don't know who those companies are. We are not short for competent companies that can see the community of Soweto move forward. So Bara as an example, Bara the hospital, one of the biggest hospitals in the world. Look at its supply chain. There is very few people, if any, from Soweto, but it's situated where? In Soweto. And how many people do you have in Soweto? Millions. So the millions of people are not competent, and we must always outsource comrades because they are comrades and they are friends. That nonsense is a thing of the past. The township economy, that Soweto township economy belongs to Sowetans. We will tell everyone else outside Soweto how we move. We are not going to be told how to move in Soweto. There is nothing for us without us in Soweto. There is nothing for Sowetans without Sowetans. And that's where the story ends, full stop. There's no compromise when it comes to that. So the jobs, the business opportunities, the entire township economy belongs to the people of Soweto and will be moved and driven by the people of Soweto. So, in closing, the message to all the young people that are listening, I'm telling you now that a lot of people will say, wow, this guy, oh wow, he can speak. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Action is everything, and there's no way that I can take action that carries the entire country and carries your communities and carries your families. We should all take the action necessary to pick each other up and carry all this weight and move forward. You don't even need to say a word. Just make sure that after this video, you don't even like it on Facebook. I don't care for your like. I don't care for your comment on Facebook. I care for your action in real life. So if you stand up and come together with young and old people in your community and start to do the right thing and get your executive in place, your community executive in place, and start mobilizing young people and register with the IEC so that your community can also be on the ballot sheet for 2024 elections and vote for your own community so that we can all meet in parliament. This is not a show for Nhlanhla. This is not a Nhlanhla show. It's a South African show moving forward, and it doesn't take Nhlanhla to take this country forward. It takes everybody to take the country forward. Example, where I am now, Native Rebels in Soweto, a kick-ass dope place where I'm able to be hosted so I can deliver the message, this revolutionary message to South Africans that are living today and kids that will be watching this video in 1,000 years' time after we are all gone. It's made possible by people who thought for themselves and others. So in all our actions, we need to be reminded that whatever you do, you start an establishment. It's not only yours, it's the community's. That's why the community can come here and articulate such serious views and make sure that you get empowered with what we are also doing in our own community. So don't forget, every single thing that we do, single thing that we say is for ourselves and others. Don't forget that. We are not selfish. We live in a community of Ubuntu. We are going to rise and do the right thing for our communities, for our families, for this country, today and tomorrow. Nhlanhla, Commander's Morning.